you come from the working class background that I come from, I feel guilty at 10 to 5 if I'm not in the office. I know that might sound strange to you, but there's a work ethic that I have to be half dead not to not go to work. It's a kind of a work ethic that's built into me, yeah? But nevertheless, having said all that, the weekends, that was it, it's over. Switch off like a light. Friday night, as you got back from the office or from the work or from the factory or whatever, it doesn't matter what was buzzing around in my head, it was off like a light switch, and that's it. Don't let it interfere, very rarely let it interfere with the weekend. And then Monday morning, bang, back on it again as if you flick the switch on again. So I think that was a bit of discipline in that respect, yeah?
That if you don't have any money, start with sweat equity, meaning go work for somebody else, use your time, energy to make them money. That's what I did. I'm here at Joel Salatin, my first mentor's farm, and he said, if you want to work for me, you can live in this little cabin. And it didn't have a toilet. Well, it had a bucket. So, and it had no heat or no water. This was my bed right here. I had bunk beds because sometimes there'd be another guy working. And this was the toilet, the bucket. I bet you could still, oh, they changed the floor. There was a hole in the floor and the bucket was underneath. Nightstand here, and I put a cup of water in it to drink, and we'd sleep in sleeping bags. And when I woke up, it was always an ice block. That's how you know it's cold in the morning. You reach over, it's like the whole thing goes. You can't start out at the top. You start out at the bottom. That's how the game goes. The natural order of things.
I've heard people say, listen, he's an out-of-the-box thinker. He's a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. But people that know
Really
you
a
say,
businessman, I wouldn't say.
you would say,
I'm not really a businessman.
you're not a businessman?
Not really.
No?
No.
What are you?
I'm sure there's probably lots of analysts on Wall Street who would agree that I'm not a businessman.
Okay, well, what do you think you are?
I'm an engineer.
An engineer?
Yeah.
Is it your dream to conquer the world and make the world a better place? What is your dream?
Like, technology's like magic, you know? I think like technology is the closest thing to magic that we have in the real world. And so I think like engineering, creative engineering is essentially technology development. I guess maybe when I was a kid, like Lord of the Rings is my favorite book.
Is it?
Yeah, and I thought it'd be like, what's the closest thing to being a wizard in the real world? And that's like creating new technologies.
Okay, I got lucky. I just stumbled, and I was one of the first people to ever use online advertising. I was in, I think, the second month Google AdWords launched. Whoa. And there was no YouTube videos. There was no Perry Marshall books. There was nothing. You just kind of wasted money to learn. Now, we're the most spoiled generation. Everything, this computer on this phone, iPhone 7, is more powerful than the first rocket that put man on the moon. That cost billions of dollars. Now we get that for under $1,000. And people are still like, I'm lost. Yes, you're lost. Sit down and then open up Safari and go, how to do Google Ads. And you're gonna come up, let's see what I come up with. AdWords, they have their own tutorial. WordStream, Jumpify, you got some paid stuff. Then you have some free stuff on HubSpot. If you sit in a chair, Charlie Munger calls it assiduity. Put your ass in a chair. Sit there and focus without being, you know, the average American right now, the average person in the world, our attention span has dropped to 5 seconds. The sad news is the average goldfish has 6 seconds. We're now competing with goldfish, and the goldfish are winning. So if you don't have assiduity to sit down, read, there is no solution for you. You will always be poor because you'll always be beat by somebody who's willing to sit in the chair.
Is there a way for people to build that discipline?
Yes, pain. And that's why I'm not a big believer in delusion. You know, you asked me one of the rewiring things we have to do in this world. I'll tell you one. You ever heard this myth? Everything happens for a reason, so just accept it. Well, there's kind of truth to that. If I jump off a building and break my legs, yes, everything happened for a reason. The reason was gravity. Like, that's why you break your legs, and physics. Legs brittle, concrete not brittle. So, but people interpret everything happens for a reason, be like, Well, I was meant to learn from that thing, and then BS. Read Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene, one of the most important books written in the last century. He says, organisms that only learn through trial and error lose to organisms that can learn through other people's trial and error. Is anybody here, we got a little live audience, anybody here ever had to be hit by a car to learn to look both ways? I didn't. I kind of learned from just somebody telling me, big car, 2 tons, velocity, smash, dead. And I now always look both ways. So if your myth is that the only way you're gonna learn is just through massive mistakes and trials and error, you haven't read Richard Dawkins' book.
How does pain allow somebody to get more disciplined?
Okay, so going back to that myth of when you see your life and anytime there should be pain, you go, no, 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 no. It was just how it was meant to be. No, look yourself in the mirror sometimes and go, you know why I'm not happy? It's because I didn't listen 10 years ago and I got in the wrong career. You know I'm not happy? Because I married the wrong damn person. It wasn't meant to happen. Yes, everything happens for a reason. You made a bad choice, but it didn't have to be that way. And the second you build up pain, and this, by the way, is not my opinion. If you talk to guys like Dr. David Buss, top 10 most cited psychologist in history, okay? He's one of my main mentors. He told me, I said, do adults change? Like, we do all this self-help videos and podcasts. I said, am I wasting my time? He goes, yeah, kind of. I said, why? He said, well, after 25, it's very hard to teach old dogs new tricks. By the way, that's why I've changed. Most of my stuff targets people 18 to 25. That's why I do Snapchat and all that, because there's hope for 18 to 25-year-olds. Now, if you're over 25, before you get depressed, he told me, but I have good news for you, Ty. I said, what? He said, adults learn through massive trauma. So you will learn. You have to let in some trauma into your life. And that's rough, but no pain, no gain. Like if you are 100 pounds overweight and you want to be able to play basketball, here's my news for you. Everything happened for a reason. You got fat because you ate too much and you didn't exercise. So welcome to the gym. In the first year is going to be hell, but that pain hopefully will reprogram your brain that every time you want to eat that nasty thing, go, wait, I don't want to go through that pain again. So I think one of the myths of society is we won't let pain in. We just excuse it all away. Like, no, that was meant to happen. Oh, you wasted 20 years of life and married the wrong person in the wrong career? No, Tom, it was meant to happen. Where's the people who go, you f***ed up, dude. You wasted 20 years and you will never get it back. You better go in your room and cry. And the truth is, you only learn as an adult. Unfortunately, most people can only change with massive trauma.
People globally who want to be like Elon Musk. What's your advice to them?
I think that probably they shouldn't want to be.
You?
I think it sounds better than it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not as much fun being me as you'd think. I don't know.
You don't think so?
No. There's definitely, it could be worse for sure, but it's, I'm not sure I'm not sure I want to be me.
Okay.
But if, you know, I think advice, I mean, if you want to make progress in things, I think that the best analytical framework for understanding the future is physics. I'd recommend studying the thinking process around physics, like not the equations. I mean, the equations certainly they're helpful, but the way of thinking in physics is it's the best framework for understanding things that are counterintuitive. And you know, always taking the position that you are to some degree wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong over time. I think one of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. You know, like you want something to be true, even if it isn't true. And so you ignore the things that, you ignore the real truth because of what you want to be true. This is a very difficult trap to avoid. And like I said, it's certainly one that I find myself in having problems with. But if you just take that approach of you're always to some degree wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong, and solicit critical feedback, particularly from friends. Like friends, particularly friends, if somebody loves you, they want the best for you. They don't want to tell you the bad things. So you have to ask them, and say, really, I really do want to know. and then they'll tell you.
I had students last week, 160 of them from Harvard and South Dakota State. I just tell them, try to find your passion. And, I mean, may not find it the first time, but, don't sleepwalk through life. Find something that you really enjoy doing if you can do it. And, not everybody's lucky enough to be able to find that, but it ought to be your goal. To make $10 a week more doing something that you don't feel good about compared to something you'd feel good about, make the change.
Bill said something that I thought was really interesting. He said, the thing you do obsessively between age 13 and 18, that's the thing you have the most chance of being world class at.
Yeah.
Bill said his one thing was coding. What was your one obsessive thing?
I was pretty interested in investments. No, Bill and I, his father, many years ago, right after we met, had us a group of about 20 write down on a sheet of paper one word that they thought accounted for their success. And Bill and I, who may have only met twice, didn't know what the other one was writing down. We both wrote down the same word, which was focus. And he was focused on software, I was focused on investments. And it gave me a big advantage to start very young. There's no question about it.
Well, like I said, I think if you study engineering and you figure out how to design new things, then it's relatively easy to start a company. You just need to get a few like-minded people with you, and then focus on creating a prototype, a compelling prototype, as soon as possible. And then, there's a strong venture capital industry in this country that will give you funding to take things to the next level. And that's all there is to it. And you might, if try it a few times, you may or may not succeed. But I think sometimes people fear starting a company too much. To have to say, really, what's the worst that could go wrong? You're not going to starve to death. You're not going to die of exposure. What's the worst that could go wrong?
Something that spread across Europe and eventually made its way to America called puerperal fever, also known as the Black Death of childbed. Basically what was happening is women were giving birth and they would die within 48 hours after giving birth. This Black Death of childbirth was the ravage of Europe, and it got worse and worse and worse over the course of over a century. In some hospitals, it was as high as 70% of women who gave birth who would die as a result of giving birth. But this was the Renaissance. This was the time of empirical data and science, and we had thrown away things like tradition and mysticism. These were men of science, these were doctors. And these doctors and men of science wanted to study and try and find the reason for this Black Death of childbed, and so they got to work studying, and they would study the corpses of the women who had died. And in the morning they would conduct autopsies, and then in the afternoon they would go and deliver babies and finish their rounds. And it wasn't until somewhere in the mid-1800s that Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes, father of Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, realized that all of these doctors who were conducting autopsies in the morning weren't washing their hands before they delivered babies in the afternoon. And he pointed it out and said, guys, you're the problem. And they ignored him and called him crazy for 30 years. Until finally somebody realized that if they simply washed their hands, it would go away. And that's exactly what happened. When they started sterilizing their instruments and washing their hands, the Black Death of childbed disappeared. My point is, the lesson here is, sometimes you're the problem. We've seen this happen all too recently with our new men of science and empirical studiers and these men of finance who are smarter than the rest of us until the thing collapsed. And they blamed everything else except themselves. And my point is, is take accountability for your actions. You can take all the credit in the world for the things that you do right, as long as you also take responsibility for the things you do wrong. It must be a balanced equation. You don't get it one way and not the other. You get to take credit when you also take accountability.
The most difficult choices I have ever faced in life was in 2008. I think I had maybe $30 million left, or $30 or $40 million left in 2008. And I had two choices. I could put it all into one company, and then the other company would definitely die, or split it between the two companies. But if I split it between the two companies, then both might die. When you put your blood, sweat, and tears into creating something, or building something, it's like a child. And so it's like, which one am I going to let one starve to death? I couldn't bring myself to do it, so I split the money between the two. Fortunately, thank goodness, they both came through.
How many times have you had somebody say to you, hey, have you got a minute, Bob? Have you got a minute? They don't want a minute. I want you to think about that. I read a poem one time. It said, I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. It was forced upon me. I can't refuse it. I didn't seek it and I didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. It's only a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. Well, at any rate, I thought, I'm going to put this on a video and I'm just going to share it with everybody. Just this one little part out of the seminar I'm making. I want you to look at this sand timer and I want you to think about your life. The sand in the top of the glass represents the future. The sand in the bottom of the glass represents the past. Now, do you know, we know what's in the past, and yet we can't do anything about it. Do you know what the trick is? You don't know how much sand's in the top of the glass. You may think you have a lot, you might only have a little. Then again, you may think you have a little, and you might have a lot. When I was a little boy, I was raised by my grandmother. And I don't know, when I was a little gaffer, she was probably 60, but as long as I could remember, Grandma would say, I'll soon be gone, dear, I'll soon be gone. Well, you know, we loved her. She was really an angel of God, but we thought she was never going to go. She lived to be 94 for 30-some years. I'll soon be gone. She didn't think she had much time left. She had 34 years left. Now, about the same time, I had a buddy of mine, Bob Yates. He was just 16. And bang, he ran into the abutment of a bridge and his life was snuffed out. If you had asked him a half hour before how much sand he had left, he would have said at least a half a century. He didn't have a half an hour. See, the trick is we don't know how much sand we have left. The future, we don't know. The past, it's gone. Now, the only thing you can deal with is what's right here, right now. And if you look, the sand is always moving. Now, think of this. You see, I was working on that, and then I was working on a graph I've got here on my computer, and I'm thinking of the time somebody said, hey, have you got a minute? Well, they don't really want a minute. Do you know if you're earning $50,000 a year, a minute's 42 cents? A half hour is $12.50. If we take that ahead a bit, if you're earning $80,000 a year, a minute's 67 cents. Half hour is $20. If you're earning $150,000 a year, got a minute? It costs you $1.25 a minute. A half hour is $37.50. So do you see, if somebody said, you want to stop for a cup of coffee? Well, if you're earning $250,000 a year, a minute is $2.08. Half hour is $62.50. And then, of course, you got the coffee to pay for on top of that. So you see, the point is this. This is all we've got right here, right now. We don't know how much we have left in the future, but we do know what we've got now. And I have found the people that win are the people who make up their mind. They're not going to waste the minutes. They're going to be productive. They're going to make it happen every minute.
You first told me that you were thinking about tunnels.
Yeah, when did I first tell you about that?
Years ago.
Okay, it's like a long time ago.
Yeah,
like,
I thought you were joking.
Yeah, it was. I was joking, but It's not because of some epiphany that I had one day driving down the 405. That's how it gets translated somehow. I was talking about tunnels for years and years. For probably 5 years or 4 years at least, whenever I'd give a talk and people would ask me about what opportunities do you see in the world, I'd say tunnels. Can someone please build tunnels? So after 4 or 5 years of begging people to build tunnels, and still no tunnels, I was like, okay, I want to build a tunnel. So like maybe I'm missing something here. So I was like basically talking people's ears off tunnels for several years, and then said, well, let's find out what it takes to build a tunnel. And so I started digging a tunnel. I wanted to start the tunnel from where I could see it from my office at SpaceX. So I said, well, let's just carve off a part of the parking lot across the road so I can see if anything's happening or not. And then we named our first boring machine Godot, because I kept waiting for it. It never came. Finally it did. And we got it going. And now we're making good progress.
Your mind is driven by deep evolutionary drives. So, for example, narcissism is a protection mechanism, right? So your mind wants to tell you you're amazing. It makes you its bitch. You have to override that and go, you know what, I'm not that amazing. So let me go learn from amazing people.
Do you have methods for people to do that? Because I think that's so important. So I tell people, don't trust everything that your mind says. Certainly don't buy into all of your emotions. Just because you have an emotion doesn't mean you have to act in accordance with that. But how do you help people get over that? How do they overcome that?
I think humans, for the most part, learn by osmosis. So it's hard to lecture people into success. But what you could do is you could inspire people to understand this. So for example, if school system could find all the 14-year-olds and find out what they admire in people, right? It's the reason I show Lamborghinis and Ferraris, because I got a lot of young followers. And you know what 19-year-old guys like? Lamborghinis and Ferraris. So I show that part of my life because then they listen to the other stuff. So first you gotta lead by inspiration. This has been proven over. You cannot pound stuff into people's brain. People actually do the opposite. When parents tell their kids, you gotta read, nobody reads. But if I show a Lamborghini and Ferrari, which is the reward that people want, and then people go, how do you get it? I said, see all these books, I read them and put it, then people, I have more school kids reading books, I think, than anyone in history. I don't say that cocky. I'm telling you, it astounds me because all I had to do was put up a video with Lamborghinis.
Right.
And so being the bitch of your own brain, the way you learn not to be, the easiest way is to be around people who aren't the bitch of their own brain. Like Joel Salatin, my first mentor, I was lucky enough right out of high school, instead of going to college, I was with him at 19, and he is not a bitch of his brain. He's a man of, he wakes up and his life's more like of duty. He knows his duty, and whether it's hard or easy, he plows through it. So every day, for example, when you have breakfast at 6 in the morning on a farm, he writes out an organized thing on what he wants to do for the day. When you're the bitch of your brain, you go, I'm just gonna freewheel this day. It's very hard to be organized. We're not, dogs aren't organized. Do you ever see your dog organizing day? So if you wanna, you can either act on the animal side, which is just a wing life, or you can operate from a sense of logic and duty. And so I learned somewhat, I'm not even as good as Joel, to not be the bitch of my mind by just being around him for a while. And so that's the best way. Find somebody that you look at them and you go, this is a person of discipline, of motivation, self-motivation. They don't need external motivation. They're motivated from within, and spend all the time you can around them.
Most people do a lot of talking and most people don't put in the effort. There's nothing you can accomplish in life with the right amount of work. The challenge is, you know, are you willing to do the work? And the reality is most people aren't, but that's the opportunity, right? It's like people you know at school. Most people are lazy, right? They barely get through it, and so that creates opportunity.
Look, the reason I talk about social is it gives you something to focus on. But let me step back. Some of you can't focus because, let's just face it, you know social media makes money by making you unfocused. Scientists have studied how Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of these apps have created addictions. And that's why the people who own them are the richest people in the world. Now, I use social media, so I'm not gonna say don't use social media. A little practical tip for 2018, turn off all notifications. On my phone, I don't have one notification on. So if you have an iPhone, go to settings, right here, go scroll down to notifications. Where is my notifications? Right there. Turn everything off. Look at mine. Show previews. Never. Off, 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 off. Every single one is off. Okay? Because I'm not a sucker. I use social media, but social media is not going to use me. I'll look at my Facebook when I want to, not when Mark Zuckerberg wants me to. Dopamine's released by these apps. It's literal physical addictions created by these. Again, you can use social media, but don't let it use you. So just a little practical thing, turn off the damn social media notifications. Instagram will be there. You gotta be reminded every time someone DMs you. Why? Are you too dumb that you can't remember that Instagram has notifications? If you can't remember it, that means it's probably not important. So it's a win-win situation. You got more time and less distraction. So focus in 2018. I gave you the first thing to focus on, which is your social life. You're gonna have to focus. You know, I don't know how to draw a horse very well, but I'll just use a square with a head. Every time I try to draw, people are like, you're horrible at drawing. So I am horrible, so. Horse. I used to have a horse and they put these things on the side of horses right here. They're called blinders. They don't really blind the horse, but the horse can only see straight ahead. And the reason they do that is because when you're out on the road with a horse, I lived with the Amish for 2 years. If a big car comes by and the horse sees that out of the corner of their eye, they get scared. And I actually knew a guy, he was driving along the side of a road, there was a cliff on the edge, that he didn't put the blinders on that horse to focus the horse. A big truck was coming, the horse saw it and kind of went like that aside, boo! Now he didn't die, but he went right off the cliff. Got injured, got thrown off 3, 4, 5, 6 months, rehabilitating from their injury. That's a good metaphor for people. You need to put your blinders on and focus straight ahead for 2018. What do you want out of 2018? More money, more happiness, more time, more freedom. Focus that brain on that thing. You can't be, this is the average person's brain in 1 second. They want to focus on, let's say they're trying to improve their business. Well, they also thinking about, oh, I got a DM. Oh, okay, Snapchat. Oh, well, yeah. Oh, my mom's calling me. Oh, I wonder, you know, what happened on that Game of Thrones episode. Focus. It can be as simple as, for example, make a time when you check all your social media. I do it. I try to check it once a day. Now, I'm in the business of social media, so I do check a little more, but my personal side, I try to wake up, focus, and I just go through all my apps one by one and get it out of the way. 15 minutes. You know, I have a lot of social media followers, so it sometimes takes me a little longer. I got 13 million or something. So I get a lot of DMs, but still, I'm not gonna check them all. Be real. Why? Just because, you know, so if you got 1,000 or 2,000 followers, whatever, 5,000, I used to have 100 followers. It took me 10 seconds a day. And then I don't need to check it. The average person at work is checking their email, they said like 20 to 50 times an hour. What a waste of life, man. Don't waste your life.
People should make New Year's resolutions if they're actually watching this video on January 1st. If they're watching it on December 23rd, they should make December 23rd resolutions. Waiting miraculously to when the calendar flips to start making your life better is silly at best and pisses me off at worst. And so whenever you're watching this, because it lives on the internet, and thus that means you could watch this on June 17th, 2017, make a resolution every day of your life because you only get one at bat. The reason people struggle with having a New Year's resolution and sticking to it is because it was a tactic to do a New Year's resolution. Hence why my first answer was right, which is when you actually decide to make a change in your life, whether about weight or job or going out with somebody or relationships, that's when you actually pull it off. It's religion, not tactics.
The third thing that you gotta know is you have to have a map of success. So think about, you know, in the olden days, they used to bury treasure, and to find it, they would have a map. And if you didn't have that map, you could spend all the hard work, all the time, all the effort, all the labor you wanted. You never would find the treasure. And the school system failed us. Let's just face it. Elementary school, junior high, high school. I'm not saying all school is bad, but I'm saying there's things it didn't teach us. We didn't learn the proper tools. And so we weren't given the map to success. And that's why so many people are in debt, and why so many people are depressed, and why so many people have financial trouble, and so many people don't know how to invest their money. It comes from a lack of a map, and I want to give you a map. And that's part of why I've traveled to 40 or 50 countries. Once I was sleeping on that couch, I found a mentor, Mike Steinbach. One thing led to another. I began to business network and began to travel. I've been to, you know, New Zealand and Japan and South America, Bolivia, Chile, Germany, all these countries around the world where I found mentors who gave me a map. They said, here, Ty, here's what worked for us. I remember being in Germany with a guy who invited me, and he was, you know, 30 years older than me. And he laid out how, he just told me, we went on a walk back to the hotel where I was staying. I was speaking, doing a little business talk there to his staff, and he said, Ty, I want to share with you what worked for me. I started at 12 years old, and now I'm 70 years old. And I want to show you what worked for me, Ty. And I remember thinking, this guy's giving me the map. What if they had given me that map when I was 18 years old in school? Life would have been so much easier. If you have the map, you'll cut the learning curve.
Well, I think to some degree, you follow your passions and then wait, you have to hope the wave catches you. I was always interested in computers. I was always interested in software. I was always a big reader. And so it wasn't, which made me alert to things like the internet and the possibility that you could build a bookstore online that would have universal selection. I think everybody has their own passion, their own thing that they're interested in, and then you're very alert to the things that are in the sphere of influence of that passion.
So your passion has led you to change the world, frankly, with Amazon. But yet you've got Blue Origin, you've got Bezos Explorations. Why can't somebody like you just rest on your laurels? Go play golf.
Well, I love what I do. I also have 4 kids. I have a wife that I love. I have a lot of passions and interests. But one of them is, at Amazon, the rate of change is so high, and I love that. I love the pace of change. I love the fact that I get to work with these big smart teams. The people I work with are so smart, and they're self-selected for loving to invent on behalf of customers. And so, it's not, do I love every moment of every day? No, that's why they call it work. There are things that I don't enjoy, but if I'm really objective about it and I look at it, I'm so lucky to be working alongside all these passionate people, and I love it. Why would I go sit on a beach?
Dreams without goals are just dreams, and they ultimately fuel disappointment. Goals on the road to achievement cannot be achieved without discipline and consistency. I pray that you all put your shoes way under the bed at night so that you got to get on your knees in the morning. To get something you never had, you have to do something you never did. Les Brown's a motivational speaker. He made an analogy about this. He says, imagine you're on your deathbed, and standing around your deathbed are the ghosts representing your unfulfilled potential. The ghost of the ideas you never acted on. The ghost of the talents you didn't use. And they're standing around your bed, angry, disappointed, and upset. They say, we came to you because you could have brought us to life, they say. And now we have to go to the grave together. So I ask you today, how many ghosts are going to be around your bed when your time comes?
There is no ceiling for you. Really. I mean, there's nothing you can't do.
I don't think there's a,
you know?
there
I mean,
ought not
color
be a
is not a
ceiling for anyone.
ceiling. There's no ceiling because, I mean, you've proven that you can cover the whole waterfront in terms of kinds of characters, whether it's a boxer or a quadriplegic or someone who's a brilliant lawyer, the whole range of stuff. Right?
You know, with the training that I had, that's the way we were trained, you know. To play any part, there's no such thing as you can't play a part. You may not be right for a particular part. But I don't think there's a part I can't attempt to play. I could at least analyze and try to break down and put a performance together. It may not be any good. But I was taught, one of the things that I was taught that sticks in my mind was a gentleman by the name of Bill Ball, who was the artistic director of the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. And he always talked about failing big. So if you're gonna fail, fail big. And I'm like, I like that philosophy.
I do too. I do
you
too.
know, I'm not a fall back mentality kind of person. People would say, well, you know, you better have another career to fall back on. I'm like, I don't want to fall back on anything. If I fall, I want to fall forward. I want to see what I'm hitting.
Or if exactly right.
You know what I mean? I don't want to. I never understood that mentality.
I didn't either.
I never understood it. I'm like, I'm going that way. I don't
I mean, if you're worried about being safe and secure, and if security, if security is your byword, then you know you're never going to reach out and do anything. I don't think that's going to protect you. You know, it's going to give you any kind of genuine satisfaction. You know, if you're worried about that, then you know
There was an old IQ,
in other words, if you're a sailor, you would never leave port. If you only care about security.
There was an IQ question. I think it was an IQ question where they had 9 dots. And you had to connect the dots, I think, with 5 lines without lifting the pencil. The only way you could do it was to go outside the box. You know, and people sit there within it and go, oh man, you can't do it. Well, you can't. Nobody said you can't go outside the box. You know?
Never give up. Without commitment, you'll never start. But more importantly, without consistency, you'll never finish. It's not easy. If it was easy, there'd be no Kerry Washington. If it was easy, there'd be no Taraji Henson, P. Henson. If it were easy, there'd be no Octavia Spencer. But not only that, if it were easy, there'd be no Viola Davis. If it were easy, there'd be no Michael T. Williamson, no Stephen McKinley Henderson, no Russell Hornsby. If it were easy, there'd be no Denzel Washington. So, keep working. Keep striving, never give up, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living. Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything except my faith. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. This is what I mean. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one step closer to success. Anything you want good, you can have. So claim it. Work hard to get it. When you get it, reach back. Pull someone else up. Each one, teach one. Don't just aspire to make a living. Aspire to make a difference.
You'll see what I mean about taking risk or being willing to fail. Because taking risk is not just about going for a job. It's also about knowing what you know and what you don't know. It's about being open to people and to ideas. In the course of the film, the character I play begins to take small steps, small risks. He very, very, very slowly begins to overcome his fears.
You don't pay a lot of attention to reviews and those kind of things?
Well, you know, you're always affected by opinion, but the more opinions there are of you, of me, the less I look at them, because I just can't live my life based upon what other people think about me. So I can't concern myself too much with what other people think. You know, it's just not healthy. I don't think I could continue to do what I do if I was constantly worrying about what somebody thought about it.
You hear often that black actors, black movies don't play well overseas. Is that the truth, or is that an excuse?
I've heard everything. And what I hear keeps changing. Because they used to say it didn't sell over here. Then it does. Then it said it doesn't sell in the South. Then it does. Well, it doesn't sell in Europe. Then it does. So I just keep pushing. Well, what an opportunity I have to prove them wrong.
I didn't get the job. But here's the thing. I didn't quit. I didn't fall back. I walked out of there to prepare for the next audition, and the next audition, and the next audition. I prayed. I prayed, and I prayed. But I continued to fail, and fail, and fail. But it didn't matter, because you know what? There's an old saying, you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're going to get a haircut. So you will catch a break, and I did catch a break. Last year, I did a play called Fences on Broadway. Someone talked about it. Won the Tony Award. And I didn't have to sing, by the way. But here's the kicker. It was at the Court Theater. It was at the same theater that I failed that first audition 30 years prior. The point is, and I'll pick up the pace, the point is every graduate here today has the training and the talent to succeed. But do you have the guts to fail?
I've been the guy at the Oscars without my name being called. I've been the guy at the Oscars when my name is called. I've been the guy at the Oscars when everybody thought they was going to call my name and they didn't. So I've lived it.
So what would you say to the people who are looking at this process and saying it's unfair?
Yeah, and so what? You gonna give up? If you're looking for an excuse, you'll find one.
In race.
You can find it wherever you like. You can't live like that. You just do the best you can do.
Yeah, I tried everything. Yeah, I was pre-med.
Another professional.
Yeah, I was pre-med in college. Then I said I'd be a doctor. Then I was political science. I said I'd be a lawyer. Then I studied journalism. So I actually was working my way toward the arts without realizing. That's why I told my children a liberal arts education is okay. You don't have to know at 17. I was 17 when I started college. You don't have to know at 17 what you're going to do the rest of your life. So I worked it out. I found my way to theater. I started with Eugene O'Neill's The Emperor Jones.
I had a real momentum going from college on through all these roles and plays that I just mentioned, right up until doing Carbon Copy in 1980, 81, and I didn't get any work for about 6 months. And I thought, well, okay, this wait a minute. There's always work at the post office. You know?
Yeah, all right, go
right.
go back to biology.
I better go back down to the city council meeting. But I got a small play, a one-act play about two guys, one named Malcolm and the other named Elijah. I was even saying Elijah. When I first read it, I'm like, this Elijah guy. I'm looking at him, I'm like, yeah, this is Malcolm. All right, it's a good part, big role. And that really jump-started my career again, because the play went over very well. We did it down at the New Federal Theater, Henry Street Settlement. And that led, I went right from that play to a Soldier's Play off Broadway, and right from a Soldier's Play to St. Elsewhere.
You will fail at some point in your life. Accept it. You will lose. You will embarrass yourself. You will suck at something. There's no doubt about it. And I know that's probably not a traditional message for a graduation ceremony, but hey, I'm telling you, embrace it, because it's inevitable.
Oh, I'm an ordinary man with an extraordinary job, not the other way around. So it's all gravy for me. You know, when I was younger, I used to coach a lot. And nothing you coach kids in sports. Nothing made me happier than seeing other people do well. Well, that's sort of my nature, and directing was the perfect job for that, because I love seeing others do well. I mean, I'm okay. I did pretty. I'm good. I've done all right. But to see others do what they're capable of gives me great joy.
To not only take risks, but to be open to life, to accept new views, and to be open to new opinions, to be willing to speak at a commencement at one of the best universities in the country, even though you're scared stiff. While it may be frightening, it will also be rewarding, because the chances you take, the people you meet, the people you love, the faith that you have, that's what's going to define you. So members of the class of 2011, this is your mission. When you leave the friendly confines of Philly, never be discouraged, never hold back, give everything you got. And when you fall throughout life, and maybe even tonight after a few many glasses of champagne, remember this: fall forward. Congratulations, I love you, God bless you, I respect you.